Hey everybody, we are another episode of Can't Stop Snapping. We have finished up our series of breaking down all of the 1 through 6 cost cards in the game that are currently available or obtainable if you're in the right collection levels. So we're going to be diving into something new this week. We are going to be reviewing and looking into the cards that have been data mined, that are technically in the game, they're not currently obtainable, and kind of breaking those down. So I do want to give a spoiler warning here. If you're not wanting to know about this, feel free to skip these next 2 episodes this week. But if you don't care or you'd like to know and kind of know my opinion and the guest host opinion, then feel free to dive into it. The recording was so long that we decided to break it into 2. So there will be an episode today and an episode later this week on Thursday. This first episode will break down all of the 1, 2, and 3 cost cards. And the Thursday episode will break down all of the 4, 5, and 6 cost cards in that episode. So very excited to break those down for you. Let us know your thoughts and opinions on the official Twitter. That is at can't_stop_snap. Just a little bit of news for you. It does sound like from just different conversations on Twitter and in the official Discord that a client patch to the game is coming out sometime next week. Obviously, we don't know exactly what will be buffed or nerfed, etc., or any other changes are coming, but it does sound like we will have a app update next week. So we will be covering that and making sure to give you an update on that once we know more next week. So stay tuned to that. And without further ado, let's jump into today's episode. Hey, everybody, we are back with another episode of Can't Stop Snapping. Just want to say thank you for continuing to join and to continue to support us as we've moved on from our first segment of breaking down all of the original cards that are in the base game currently. If you are listening right now, it means you've made it past the spoiler warning in the introduction to the episode, and you are willing to hear about cards that have been data mined and have leaked that eventually will be available in the game. Today, I am joined with guest host Rogtronic. Roger has been streaming the game on his Twitch and has been posting content around Marvel Snap on his YouTube over the last several weeks. Has been breaking down decks, has been sharing ideas, and has been contributing to the wealth of content that's been created around the Marvel Snap game. So Roger, thank you for joining and thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me, Michael. Really appreciate being here. And thank you for that glowing intro. I don't know how well I've been contributing to the Marvel Snap metaverse, if you will, but thank you very much for the kind words.
Well, no, I've checked out some of your videos and seen some of your stuff, and I've enjoyed it. So appreciate you being here. So before we dive into our breakdown of the leaked cards, I just want to give you a second, just your overall impressions. We've had the game for several weeks now. What have been your impressions of the game so far? How are you enjoying it? What do you think about its future, etc.?
So to start, I'm really enjoying the game. I'm definitely playing it way too much, which probably is a good sign, I think.
I'm the same.
Yeah, exactly. It's like I'm playing this way too much to not be enjoying myself. I really love the design of this game. I've recently become a dad, so the ability to play a game in one hand and have games over in like 3 to 6 minutes is huge for me right now. And then I feel though right now, because I've been playing it a couple of weeks, like a lot of people, the sort of progression has kind of stagnated a little bit. I saw a very good thread recently from a Hearthstone caster who talked about the progression and how, early access to this game, you get quite hyped, quite excited, but I feel like that hype is kind of slowed a little bit, but I understand the game is in beta still. So I'm not upset about that, but I think a few people are feeling that a little bit. I don't know, correct me if I'm wrong.
No, I get the same impression as you. And I think seeing feedback from the developers and from the creators of the game, sounds like we don't have the complete, package for a global launch yet. It sounds like there's a couple more game modes that will enable further unlocking of cards, etc. And it's hard to be able to see kind of the whole picture. I think some people are looking at it with that lens of, oh, well, this is how it will be forever, and it will be this slow or this stagnant. But, I just don't think we have the whole picture, but I totally get what you're saying.
I agree. I mean, I don't want that to be construed as negative. I think I'm really excited to see where they go. And we are in beta, so there will be changes. There will be I imagine there's all sorts of changes already based on the feedback we've given. So yeah, like you, excited to see where it goes, and I'm really excited to see what else they add.
Awesome. Well, we are going to dive right in here to our card breakdown. We'll be following a similar structure we've followed on previous episodes. I will be reading out the name of the card, the cost of the card to play, the power level of the card, and the ability or description of the card. Now, these are cards that are not currently obtainable in the game, but were found in the game's code. I actually chose not to read all of them. I've read several of them, but there's probably about half of them I haven't read. So maybe, so I could have some more of a live reaction here. But we will just dive in here and we will go from the lowest cost to the highest cost order. So starting things off, we have Makari. Makari is a 0 cost, 2 power card. The ability reads, when you draw this, place it at a random location. So kind of a free play on the board, right? And you don't have to. Well, I guess I wouldn't even use the word you don't have to. It's you can't choose where it goes, right? And you can't intentionally play it. So I don't know. I obviously you're getting free 2 power on the board, but what are your thoughts? I worry about the randomness of this.
Yeah, randomness. Generally, I'm come from a Hearthstone background, and 0 cost cards tend not to be that good, except for like very niche sort of use cases. The fact that if you draw it, you're kind of. I like the sort of filter effect it has in your deck. You know what I mean? You draw it and it immediately gets played. But yeah, it doesn't. I don't think it ever feels good. Like, and it also fills up a board space as well, and board space is precious in this game. So, there is a place for it, but I don't think it's great, to be honest.
Yeah, we'll have to see if it has any synergies later on. But up next, we have Black Knight. I love this art for anybody that wants to come check it out later. But Black Knight is a 1 cost, 2 power card. His ability reads, when this is destroyed, draw a card. So playing into the destroy synergy here.
I don't think this is a very good card. Yes, it's cycle, but you're also losing 2 power on the board for an early drop. I'm happy to be wrong. I think I love the flavor of it, definitely, and I like the adding to the destroy. I'm hoping the destroy sort of mechanic gets more and moves away from Nova Carnage and gets more sort of tools outside of that. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I would agree with you. You have 12 cards in your deck, right? So being able to draw extra card in a normal game, you're going to draw 9 of your 12 cards, right? Without any boost to drawing. This obviously gives you a 10th card. But like you say, the trade-off is that you lose 2 power you've placed on the board. So not something where you can destroy it like Wolverine, Sabretooth, right? And kind of regain that power or improve that power on the board. So I don't know. We'll have to see if there's some significant draw synergies as well, with other cards. But right now, kind of a middling to lower card in my mind.
Definitely.
Up next, we have Bullseye. Bullseye is a 1 cost, 2 power card, similar stat line. The ability reads, on reveal, the next card you draw will be a 2 cost card, if any are left. I think this is interesting. There's been plenty of debates I've seen online where people say, is Quicksilver good? Is Domino good? Right? Kind of these guaranteed draw a card on a certain turn. So this kind of plays similar. It's obviously different, but the next card you draw will be a 2 cost card. Now, obviously, if you're playing this on turn 1, okay, you're guaranteed to get your ramp and to get a 2 cost card to play on turn 2, which is not a bad thing. Also, I guess you could be playing this late in the game if you're wanting to pull something like Carnage, right? Later in the game, right? I don't know. I'm trying to think of how this would play into current things, but I don't know how this will play into future meta.
Yeah, I think the only way this will work, like you said, on turn 1, it's a great play because you guarantee at least a turn 2 play. This might be used in later decks that have run 1 2 cost card that they always want to draw, that basically their deck hinges on. I don't know what that deck is yet, but I think if there ever does become a deck like that, Bullseye becomes an absolute essential card in that deck.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. Up next, we have Dark Hawk. Dark Hawk is a 1 cost, 3 power card that reads, you can only play this at locations where you already have a card. So, a fair stat line, I think, for a 1 cost card with that 3 power, the requirement being, or the limitation being, that you have to already have a card on the board. But, I think this is an okay card. You know, something that comes to my mind is like Ant-Man, right? Ant-Man ends up being like a 1/4 if you have the location maxed out, but this doesn't require you to max out the location. So what do you think?
Yeah, it's not a one cost card because you can't play it on turn one. In my mind, it's you
Yeah.
know, it has to be a two cost. It's basically a two cost card. The only thing I can think of is it Central Park that drops squirrels? You know, if you get that down on turn one and there's squirrels on the board, then it becomes a one cost card. But for me right now, it's not a one cost card on turn one. Put it that way. You can't play it turn one. So then then you're just using it to fill out curve. You know, if you're playing 2 cost on a 3 power turn, essentially, or 3 mana turn. Yeah, I mean, I can, you know, I can see a place for it again, but I don't think it's a great card. I don't think it's a meta definer.
Yeah, maybe the day they have Central Park as a featured location, this will be useful. But other than that, maybe not so much. Up next, we have Elsa Bloodstone. Elsa is a 1 cost, 1 power card. Her ability reads, at the end of each turn, if you are winning this location, +1 power. So we've seen a couple cards that kind of have this, you know, I think of Adam Warlock, right? If you're winning a location at the end of the turn, you get some kind of buff or bonus. And Adam Warlock is draw a card. This one is +1 power. So obviously, if you're able to get her down on turn 1 and keep that rhythm going and control of that location, you know, that can add up to basically be a 1/7 if you were able to control the entire game.
Yeah, to me, it feels like a win more card or a bad sunspot. I feel it's very much requiring you to continue to win a location. And what I think is a cool ability, I think it's a great card design, and I love the art on it. I still think it's more of a win more card.
Yeah, no, I could see that as well. Hey everybody, I wanted to jump in here for just a second to tell you about Anchor. Anchor is a tool that I am using to create this podcast and distribute it on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and various other podcasting platforms. Anchor is an app you can download for free on the App Store and use to record, edit, add sound effects, etc., and distribute your podcast. I chose to use it because it was very simple to get up and going quickly, and it was free to use. If you have a podcast idea that you've been, you know, throwing around in your mind and you'd like to get out there, make sure to download the Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started and create your podcast today. Up next, we have Kitty Pryde. I love the flavor of this card. It's a 1 cost, 2 power card that reads, you can pull this back to your hand at any time. So, you know, she can kind of like go through walls, right? That's her ability in the universe. And so I don't know. I don't know how useful it is, but I like the flavor of it at least.
I think it works well with cards. Like, is it Angela or Angela? I never know how to pronounce her name.
Yep.
Or Bishop. You know, cards that get +1 or +2 when you add a card to a location. So maybe being able to use Kitty Pryde to continuously buff them might be good in some decks.
Yeah, that's a fair point. I mean, you could kind of get that bonus over and over again without locking up the slot. So
sure, yeah, absolutely.
Up next, we have M'Baku, I think is the right way to pronounce it. Is a 1 cost, 2 power card. His ability reads, if this is in your deck after the final turn, it jumps to a random location. I'm going to say thumbs down on this one. I just
absolutely.
I don't know what to say other than I don't think that's that powerful, and I don't think it's that great.
I 100% agree with you. This is a very bad card, in my opinion.
It's just like the first card we talked about, Makari, right? Essentially, you're just getting a 2 power at a random location, theoretically, right?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. It's a worse angel, I think.
Yep. Up next, we have Nebula. I think this is an interesting one. Nebula is a 1 cost, 1 power card. Her ability reads, on reveal, if your opponent played a card here this turn, +2 power, and put this in your hand. So this plays into the Guardians of the Galaxy flavor that we've talked about on previous episodes, right? This kind of, if you can guess where your opponent's playing and you guess right, then you get a buff. This one's, I think, very interesting because potentially over the course of the game, you could buff this multiple times.
Yeah, it took me actually a while because the text says ×2 power in the card. Spoiler
Oh
alert.
yeah, I probably misspoke. I probably said +2, and it's
so it is ×2 power, is it?
It is. Yes. So I misspoke. Good catch. So, and I was thinking of it the right way, but I said it the wrong way. So she starts at 1 power, but if you guess right, then she doubles to 2 power. You get her back in your hand. If you play her again and guess right again, she doubles to 4. She goes back to your hand, and you can stack that several times.
You can keep doing that, but the downside obviously then is long term. If you on the last turn guess correctly, and she's suddenly like she's a 1, what's 12 or whatever she could maximum, then she bounces back to your hand. Correct?
That's how I read it. Yeah.
Yeah. So like you want to have her on the board. Yeah, I don't know. This is a real.
It's risky.
It's so risky, this card. The more I read it, the more I go, wait, is this card good or not?
Yeah, I mean, ideally, your opponent has a location they've already locked out, and you have that extra spot. You can play it down on the last turn, right?
Yeah, you want to guess right like 4 times, and then guess wrong on the last turn.
Yeah. So I think it'll be an exciting one and an interesting one to see played. So
absolutely.
Up next, we have Silver Samurai, a 1 cost, 2 power card. Ability reads, when this is discarded from your hand, draw a card. So similar to what was the one we talked about? Kind of like the Black Knight, but discard instead of destroy.
Yeah, I like this. I like the sort of upside this card have. You know, you can just play it as a 1/2. Or if you're lucky enough to discard it, you know, get cycling through your deck more, especially with discard. You want to get through your deck fast with the discard cards, and sometimes you're looking at an empty hand, like you're kind of aiming for an empty hand a lot of the time, but this helps you just sort of speed through your deck a little bit more, I think.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. Up next, we have Snowguard. Snowguard is a 1 cost, 2 power card that reads, if you haven't played this by turn 3, transform it into a random spirit animal. And the spirit animals are either a polar bear that is a 5 cost, 3 power card, an eagle that is a 3 cost, 4 power card, or a some kind of a jackal looking thing that's a 4 cost, 8 power card. And they each have different abilities. So I guess we should cover those really quickly. The polar bear is on reveal, give your other cards +1 power. The bird is you can move this each turn, similar to Vision. And the jackal is ongoing, -2 power for each other card you have here. That is a lot to unpack.
Yeah.
Do you have any initial impressions of that?
I've had to read this card several times to understand what it actually does. So just for the listeners again, so if you haven't played it this turn, if you haven't played it by turn 3, it transforms. So it's a 1/2 on turns 1 and 2, and then on turn 3, it transforms into one of those beasts.
Correct.
And I think the third one's a Wendigo. I'm going to guess it's a Wendigo. But I could be completely wrong. You've called it a jackal, but it's got horns.
Yeah, I guess a jackal is like a bunny with with horns. I just saw the horns, and that's what came to mind. So.
Yeah, no, I'm not. I'm happy to be wrong here as well. Yeah, again, in terms of how good this card is, I think there's way too much variance in this. Like, you know, the 3 animals are cool. It's got a really cool sort of flavor. The artwork is slick on this. I really like the way this card looks. I'd love to see some upgraded versions, but is it a good card? I don't think so. I think it's a bit memey in my opinion.
Yeah, a bit too unpredictable, I think, in some ways, right? So
yeah, exactly.
Up next, we have Titania. Titania is a 1 cost, 5 power card, so highest stat line we've seen of the 1-drops here. When any card is played at this location, this card switches sides. Yeah, there's some real interesting flavor going on with some of these cards. So potentially this can flip-flop across the board multiple times, I'm assuming, until well, I guess, how am I reading this? So when any card is played at this location, this card switches sides. I don't think that means it switches place with the other card that was played. I think it just means it just goes to the other side of the location if it can.
Yeah,
how I read it.
That's how I understand it here, and I suppose it's the sacrifice you make for playing a 1/5 is that you can, you know, the downside to this card is because obviously they've made it really powerful, so they have to obviously provide a sort of counter to that power. And it's it could end up on your opponent's side. So I can't do. I don't want to do this live on the podcast because my brain might break. But I'm trying to figure out, like, if everybody played a card one after the other, where does she end up? Does she end up back on your side, or if both sides are full with 4 cards, does she end up back on your side? Maybe your listeners will chime in.
Yeah,
on this later.
I'm like starting to do the math in my head. I'm like, no, I'm not going to do it right now.
I need a sheet of paper and some sort of like
I
a
need
protractor.
some pictures and some diagrams here.
Yeah, absolutely.
Up next, we've got Uncle Ben. I like this one. This is a 1-cost 2-power card that says, when this card is destroyed, add Spider-Man to your hand. I mean, talk about thematic, right?
Absolutely.
So you could potentially this add Spider-Man to your hand, meaning I don't believe you need to have Spider-Man in your deck, right? So I think Spider-Man's a pretty solid card, and you could even run Spider-Man and then have 2 Spider-Mans in your deck. So
rewind again. So Spider-Man, is he a 3/2 that blocks off
I believe
the
it's a
location?
3/2, and he prevents your opponent from playing at that location on the next turn.
Yeah, which is super powerful if you're trying to just get you've already sort of won. So sorry, if you've already sort of won a location, you're just trying to prevent your opponent from playing any more cards there. I like Uncle Ben. I think that's a good card, and I love the flavor.
Yeah. Probably one of my favorite flavor cards, just thematic from the comics, from the movies, etc. So up next we have Yo-Yo. I'm not familiar with Yo-Yo as a character. Yo-Yo is a 1-cost 2-power card that reads, when this card moves, move it back with +1 power. So I think this is the first one we've talked about today that kind of works with the move archetype. How do you think this fits into the rest of the move archetype we've seen thus far?
I don't know. I don't feel the move deck is great or doesn't, it's a fun deck to play, but right now I don't think it's a tier 1 deck. Obviously love seeing more cards that kind of add to that. It's a hard one to know. Like, I love the fact that it's called Yo-Yo and it bounces back and forth. That is great. So I'm trying to think. You play, is it Iron Fist that moves the next card to the left?
Correct.
But, that's a 1-drop, and then on turn 2, are you just playing Yo-Yo? I mean, there's lots of ways to move this around. So essentially, if you manage to move it like every turn or every second turn, you still have a 1, maybe 4 by the end of the game, which I think could be powerful.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see. I think the noticeable thing is that obviously it has to be able to move back to that location, and so wherever you put it, it's not like you can like keep moving it across the board to other locations. You have to like be committed to it at that location. So
yeah.
Okay, well we're jumping into the 2-cost cards here. Up next is Daredevil. Daredevil is a 2-cost 2-power card. His ability reads, on turn 5, you get to see your opponent's plays before you make your own. So the way I'm understanding this is, if you've played him on the board before turn 5, as I'm reading this, your opponent basically plays their turn 5, and you get to see the result, and then you get to play your turn 5 in response to theirs.
Yeah. When you sort of sent me this link with all these cards, like you, I didn't read them all. I read most of them. This card jumped out to me as the most, I won't say game breaking, but game changing cards. This is, and then what happens if both you and your opponent play Daredevil? How does that work? Does nobody get to see, because one of you has to play cards?
Yeah. I wonder if it's just a defaults to whoever has initiative on that turn or something. I don't know.
That's probably how it's going to be resolved. But I think this is a game-changing card. Everyone will run Daredevil. I don't care if I'm wrong. I'm predicting it here. Everyone is going to run Daredevil.
Yeah. I know a lot of people love Daredevil's character, so people have been chattering, where's the Daredevil card? What is his ability? I want to know. And so I think a lot of people will be excited to see this awesome ability on Daredevil.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
Well, up next, we have another one of the Defenders. Luke Cage is a 2-cost 1-power card. His ability reads, ongoing, your cards can't have their power reduced. And cards, so it doesn't say at location. So that means cards across the entire board can't have their power reduced. And I'm assuming I could be wrong, but I'm assuming that's by locations or by other cards.
Yeah, and does it mean cards in your hand as well, or is it only cards on the board? Is
Uh
my other question
yeah, I
there.
mean it doesn't say, but I've tended to assume when descriptions are written this way, generalized, it kind of means everything.
Yeah, we won't nitpick over the exact ability. I'm not sure it's a great card either. Regardless, maybe if we see, like you said, some featured locations that do negative power. I can't think of them right now, but the -1, -2,
Yeah,
-3,
sewer system, yep, all those, yep.
all those guys. So yeah, Luke Cage could be a good counter if those locations start to crop up more frequently, or we start to see more people playing like Scorpion or any other cards that make your cards negative. But I think we'd have to have like a meta that has a lot of negative effects before Luke Cage becomes a prominent card.
Yeah, it's not a good defense unless the key offense, is blocked by it. So
Yeah.
up next we have Mariah Hill. Mariah is a 2-cost, 3-power card. Her ability is on reveal, add a random 1-cost card to your hand. So similar to Agent 13, obviously an additional cost, and it is a random 1-cost card. So I believe Agent 13 is just a random card. So this, for better or for worse, kind of minimizes your RNG to a certain pool of cards.
Yeah, it could be good, like with the likes of Collector, Devil Dinosaur, adding those cards back in, rather than reducing your hand size, keeping your hand size large. I think it's a middling card. I mean, it's not bad. Like if it gets randomly generated into your hand, you're not upset about it, but you're not thrilled either.
Yeah, I like the RNG cards because of the funness and watching what happens when people play them, but I just don't think they're meta defining or really gonna have success on the ladder. So
you won't see competitive players running them, I wouldn't think.
Exactly. Up next, I think is a pretty good card, but we'll see what you think. Silver Sable is a 2-cost, 6-power card. Her ability reads, you can only play this at a location where you have 6+ total power. So obviously there is that requirement. So you're going to not be playing her on turn 2. So that is maybe a negative. But I mean, a 2-cost, 6-power stat line is pretty good.
Yep. I think the only time you're going to be playing her turn 2 is if the location that gives your cards +5 power is there, and you play your 1-drop on it. What's that? Namor's home.
Yeah. Atlantis.
Yes. Yep. Well remembered. Wow, you've got some memory for these cards, for these places and cards and locations. Yeah, Silver Sable. I think 2/6 is a great stat line. Again, not really a 2-drop, but I think that's a good card that just might slot into a lot of decks, because getting 6 power at a location is generally not that hard. I think you'd have to be very unlucky to find a location, play at least one location where you can't generate 6 power.
Yeah. So I think she could have some play. Up next, we have Agent Coulson. Agent Coulson is a 3-cost, 4-power card, and his ability is on reveal, add a random 4 and 5-cost card to your hand. So we just talked about another card that kind of randomly generates a card. This is, again, limited to certain pools, but you get 2 cards for this. Still random, right? So it's maybe not playing into your strategy, but I think it could potentially open up opportunities in a game where you can get 2 randomly generated 3 or 4-cost cards, 4 or 5-cost cards.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, goes well with Devil Dino or Collector or cards that benefit from your hand being full or getting those random cards. And correct me if I'm wrong, but random 4-cost and 5-cost cards will generally be quite powerful cards. Would that be fair to say?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of good. And one thing to note is the 4-cost and the 5-cost card pools, I think, are the 2 smallest in the game currently.
Okay. Yeah.
And so there you kind of like minimizing the RNG, right? Each percentage pull of each card is better than in the other pool drops.
Yeah. Although the longer the game goes on, the worse Coulson will get, I assume then.
That is very true.
I still don't see people running them in his deck, running Coulson in their decks, but I think he's a very fun card. And I love his artwork. It's very James Bond-esque.
Yes. Great character in the movies and in the shows. Up next, we have Blink. Blink is a 3-cost, 1-power card. The ability reads, you can move this each turn. When it moves, plus 1 power. So another move synergy card has that similar ability we've now seen on a couple of cards. Obviously, the Vision being the one that's currently in the game. You can play it 2 turns earlier than Vision. And you get that plus 1 power. So, I mean, if you play it on turn 3 and you move it 3 times, then that ends up being like a 3-cost, 4-power card, which is not great. But if you're playing it with other things that maybe buff if cards move there, etc., maybe it can play into that synergy. I don't know.
Yeah, I think you have to be playing it in a move deck. I'm thinking of the likes of Craven or cards that get buffed when you move cards into their location. Yeah, like you said, I did the maths on this before. Like if you're playing it on turn 3 and you only move it once each turn, that's only a 3 for 3/4, which is not great. It's probably bad in terms of other cards you could run. But yeah, if you have the ability to move it, maybe using Cloak or other cards that allow you to just freely move cards, potentially. Well, actually, that's an interesting one. How would this work with Cloak? Could you move it once and then move it to Cloak afterwards? I don't think so.
Yeah, because you can't really do a double move in that way on one turn, right?
That's true. So I don't think this is a great card, even in the move decks that are looking for more cards to move.
Yeah. Yep. Unless there's a better Craven, right? We'll have to see. Up next is Blob. Blob is a 3-cost, 4-power card. His ability reads, ongoing. Nothing can move this to another location. Don't know what to say here. Don't think it's that great of a card. We've had multiple cards here where you've been talking about the move synergy or anti-move synergy, and I just struggling how it all pieces together.
Yeah, I don't think this is a good card. I think the artwork is phenomenal. I think this is the card design is very, very cool. I like the fact that Blob can't be moved. That's great. But again, unless there's like a meta where your opponent is moving your cards around, kind of like maybe the way like an armor is used to counter that Nova, you know what I mean? It really feels like a tech card that will only be useful in a certain type of meta. So I don't see people running this in just a normal deck. Phenomenal artwork, phenomenal card design, but not a great card, I don't think.
Yeah. We'll see. We'll see how this whole move thing shakes out. Up next, we have Jean Grey. And, at first I thought a Jean card would have some kind of Dark Phoenix vibes, but this does not actually have that. So Jean is a 3-cost, 3-power card. Her ability reads, on reveal, the next card your opponent plays must be played here if possible. What are your initial thoughts here?
Immediately, I like the kind of control style. If you have an opponent, if we could apply to the current meta, when maybe the next turn an opponent might be trying to pull out that Nova Carnage or a Devil Dino, and you just place it somewhere else, potentially at a location. It's like, I remember the location that says, cards can't be destroyed or something like that. I really like the ability to kind of dictate where your opponent has to play their cards. So I don't think it's going to be a great card, but I really like the ability it has.
Yeah, I'm dreaming of a deck where, I'm thinking Dr. X, Jean, Storm, just some kind of combination control deck where you can basically just shut down any strategy, right? She kind of plays in that vibe, but I don't know if there's enough there to make a consistent deck. But.
Yeah. I mean, you could make a very annoying deck, but maybe maybe not a good deck.
This next one, I'm just going to make sure I'm seeing the first letter right. Yes, it is an N. So the next card
it's an M. It's an M.
Is it?
Yeah, that's her from It's from Deadpool.
Oh, okay. Well, the website has it wrong. They saw it as an N too. I was like, it makes more sense as an M, but it looks like an N.
I'm gonna Google it. Maybe I am wrong.
No, I mean you definitely could be right. I think it's just the.
No, it's an N. My apologies. It is an N. Go for it.
Oh, it is. Okay. Yep. Well, okay, listeners, we're gonna let you know what we're talking about now. This is Negasonic Teenage Warhead. It is a 3-cost, 2-power card that reads, when any card is played here, destroy this card and that card. So essentially, Kind of another control-esque card, right? You kind of know, or you're anticipating how your opponent's going to play, and you can throw off their strategy with this card.
Yeah, you're basically saying to an opponent, you're basically making an opponent have a low impact card, and they have to play it first. You know, I'm trying to think of cards related in Hearthstone where you basically have to, like, play a, for counter spell, you have to play a bad spell first if you know it's going to get countered. So yeah, you have to waste energy to kind of counter this card. So yeah, and well done for checking the name. I was convinced this was Mega Sonic Teenage Warhead.
Well, that's what made more sense to me. That's why I was confused. So
yeah.
Well, up next we have. Oh, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, like you said, nice, another tool in a control deck's arsenal. And I think the more sort of control we get, the happier I'll be.
Yes, agreed. Up next, Guardian. Red Guardian is a 3-cost, 6-power card that reads, on reveal, you must play a card here next turn. I assume that's obviously if you're able to, but I don't really know how this fully. Sorry, give me 1 second.
That's okay. I'll let him sort that out. I just wanted to go back to the Negasonic Teenage Warhead. Actually, it says when any card is played here, so you could use it in a destruction deck where you play your next card, like a Bucky Barnes or a Nova or something like that, where you want to destroy a card. So it does say when any card is played here. So you might want to use it on your own cards to destroy a specific card you're about to play at that location.
Oh, that is a great point. I guess, yeah, I hadn't really read it that way, but that is kind of how it's written.
Okay, now that your dad duties are over.
Yes. You spoke about being a recent dad. I have a couple of kids of my own, and I apologize to listeners for the interruption, but hey, that's part of my job. So
absolutely.
Well, let's dive into Red Guardian here. So Red Guardian is a 3-cost, 6-card power card, like I said. So on reveal, you must play a card here next turn. I'm interested to know if that means, because I'm thinking, what if your location is locked down and you can't play a card there? Does that just mean you can't play a card next turn? That's not how it's written, but I guess I'm a little confused of how this plays out.
Yeah, I think you're correct in saying that. Like, if you can't play a card, you might just be stuck. Because I think it does, in certain cards, it does say, like, if able in parentheses, in brackets, if there was the ability to play it somewhere else. But I think it's, you're telegraphing where you're playing your next card, and 3 for 6 is really good stat line. But yeah, you are basically saying to your opponent, this is where I'm playing on the next turn, and that leaves you open to being countered. So again, I don't see this card getting a huge amount of use, even though it's got a great stat line.
Yeah. Well, up next we have Strife. Strife is a 3-cost, 7-power card that reads, if your opponent has 12 plus power here at the end of any turn, destroy this. I think this card's too risky. I think at least in the current meta, most people end up with at least 12 plus power at a location. That could obviously change with time, but it's got a great stat line. But I'm worried this is just going to get deleted most games.
It's got one of the best stat lines in the game, surely, like for its cost to power ratio, surely. Yeah, but it's way too risky. I mean, unless you have a way to replay it, I can't think off the top of my head. It's like, are there cards that bring cards back from the dead? Am I right? Why do I feel like there is a card out there that brings
Ghost Rider? Cards? Yeah, okay. Ghost Rider can bring back a destroyed card, I believe.
Okay, so potentially that's where it might work. Again, very, very niche case. But yeah, you're probably never running this card in a normal deck unless it's got some bonkers combos.
Yeah, we'll have to see. I just want to cut in really quick here. We've talked a little bit about the art as we've been going, but I don't know if you feel this way, but I worry because I see so many cards that, like, I just want to upgrade them to see what they look like, even though I don't actually want to play them in decks.
Absolutely.
And so I'm like I'm looking at this one, I'm like, man, I want to just see this, with an infinity split, but I don't know if I'm going to play it. So
absolutely.
yeah.
But I actually, just on that point, the more I think about it, no, because it says if your opponent has 12 points here at the end of any turn. So even if you did bring him back and your opponent still had 12 power at that location, he would be destroyed.
Yeah.
So it doesn't even work with the combo I just suggested.
Well, I think it does, because you could play Ghost Rider at another location, and I think Ghost Rider will bring it back to that location.
Okay. So maybe have we just made the new meta deck? I think
probably. I think we figured it out. We'll see how much it catches on, though. So
yeah, absolutely.
Just want to give you a minute before we close out here. Just tell the listeners where they can find you, how they can consume the content that you're creating, and how they can best support you.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I really do appreciate you sending out the invite. Rogtronic, or Rogtronic, as most people pronounce it. My name is Roger, but when you spell out Rogtronic, you'll pronounce it Rogtronic. You'll find me, Twitter, Discord, Twitch, YouTube. I've been making YouTube for years. Kind of jumped around different, whatever games take my fancy, and right now Snap is definitely taking my fancy. You can come hang out and watch me on stream on Twitch, playing this game as well. I'm super excited to see where this goes. I'm hoping to be a part of this game for quite some time. I hope it keeps going. I really do believe, with the people behind it and the sort of model they have and the fact that it's mobile, hopefully you guys can follow me making content on this for quite some time.
Well, awesome. Thank you again, Roger. We hope to be able to have you back at some point in the future. And listeners, as always, just want to say thank you. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for continuing to support. Make sure to, again, reach out on Twitter at can't_stop_snap to give any feedback about the podcast. Please let me know if there's any creators out there that you'd like to have on the show, and make sure to follow the podcast so you don't miss our next episode. Thanks for listening. Can't Stop Snapping is a podcast written, produced, recorded, and hosted by Michael Thurman. Thanks for listening.